them with Barack Obama. Of course, what did he do? He told them what they wanted to hear. And then when he got into office, he spent 8 years doing nothing like what he said he would do. In fact, continuing, not least in the Middle East, the policies of Bush. And now with Trump, they've done a similar job on the other wing of American politics by telling them what they want to hear. And Trump has said he will do this, he will do that. He's thrown in a few areas of conspiracy research. He said that, oh no, the whole global warming thing is a hoax. He says it's by China. Nonsense. It is a hoax, but not by China. And he's thrown in a few questions about 9/11 here and there. And he has therefore not only pulled in the if you like, the right in American politics, he's also pulled in much of the alternative media in America into this facade, into this vaudeville that is the Trump phenomena, because it has to be psychological in the way people are pulled in, because this whole global conspiracy manipulation is a perception deception. You can't control people en masse, billions of people, physically, although this surveillance state is going closer and closer to it. You have to persuade them to believe what you want them to believe, to see the world and themselves as you want that to be seen, so that if you've got their perception, you'll get their actions. You'll get what they'll support, what they won't support. And politics is just an enormous perception deception. This is how it works. If you look into most countries, you have two parties, sometimes three, mostly two, America's a classic, that have any chance of forming a government. So people vote for Party A, and they get into government, and they don't do what the people want who voted for them. And so to get Party A out, people are left with one choice. They have to vote for Party B. So they get into power, and nothing changes. The same thing goes on, like Obama following Bush, basically. And so now you don't like Party B and what they've done, because they've pretty much done the same as Party A. So how do you get Party B out? You've only got one choice at the ballot box, and that's to vote for Party A again. And so you go A, B, A, B. It's choice. It's democracy. No, it's a farce. It's a rigged system. Now, the next question in this political illusion is, why do the parties do basically the same thing when they get into office? Well, it works like this. If you look at the Bush administration, that was controlled, even acknowledged in some parts of the mainstream media, by a group of people who were known as neocons or neoconservatives. And then if you look at the Democratic Party, they are controlled by a similar group of people, not least people including George Soros, Zbigniew Brzezinski, these sort of people, by a group that I call the Democons. And then, this is the key point, if you go back one step more into the shadows, outside of the public gaze, the neocons and the democons answer to the same force, the same masters. And thus, whoever's in power, be it Republican or Democrat, that force is always in power. And the idea, therefore, is to use this perception deception to kid people that they actually have choice when the same force is always in power. And not least thanks to the alternative media over the last few decades, particularly more recently, people have started to see that actually, as some people say in America, it doesn't matter who you vote for because the government still gets in. Yes, the secret government, that force in the background. And so people have got more and more cynical and disinterested in politics, but you've got to keep them interested to give the political system any kind of credibility. So you sell them the first black president. Well, that worked out well for black people, didn't it? That brought people together. And you sell them a man who is about change and he's going to be different. Oh, yeah, vote for him. Well, that, after 8 years, went nowhere, which made many people even more cynical, not least because the person who was from the Democratic side, supposed to replace Obama, is one of the most corrupt politicians with her husband in American political history, Hillary Clinton. But then along comes Trump, and what does he do? He grabs the interest of people. Whether they like him or whether they don't like him, he's grabbed their interest. They're engaged in this farce called political choice and political parties. And so now we have Trump replacing Obama, but as I'll come to, what it looks like very clearly is it's just going to continue for reasons I'll explain. And for anyone who doesn't think that presidents are told what to do and that this hidden hand in the background is calling the shots, they should just look at the leaked WikiLeaks email of a man called Michael Froman, former executive of Citibank, who sent an email to the Obama group before Obama was elected, suggesting the names for his administration in all these different positions, in the major positions of government and their subordinates. And what happened when Obama came to power is that almost in its entirety, those suggestions were appointed by Obama to government. This is the way it works, where this hidden hand is dictating to what are not the most powerful man in the world, but are just gophers for this force. Now, are we really going to believe that out of nowhere, just like Obama appeared to come out of nowhere, that Donald Trump has bucked the system? Hello. Of course, trying to sell Clinton as something different was basically an impossibility. You only look at Clinton and you see system, you see business as usual. And the idea is to sell to people that this new president is not business as usual, while they are business as usual. And so Trump has told people what they wanted to hear. He's told the alternative media in America what they wanted to hear. And so many people have bought the lie and bought the illusion. And the reason I say that the letters are now 10 foot high is, as I said about Trump all along, don't watch the words, watch the actions. So he has, in this short period, given the American economy to Goldman Sachs. Not only the economy, he's got Goldman Sachs people all the way through his administration, including this guy, Steve Bannon, who is right at his shoulder. And he's talking about scrapping vast amounts of regulation. And I agree, the world is far too fiercely regulated. But there is some regulation that is absolutely essential to stop the 1%, less than 1%, from running frickin' riot, as they did in the lead up to the financial crash in 2008. And these are the areas where Trump is talking about deregulating. Oh, we've got to deregulate to help small business. Yes, small business, medium-sized business is being drowned in regulation all over the world. But that's not what Trump's really talking about. That's the facade. That's telling people what they want to hear again. The real beneficiaries of this deregulation that he says he's going to introduce will be the Goldman Sachs, will be the JP Morgans, will be all these giants that led the world into financial catastrophe in 2008. Why? Because there had been decades and decades and decades of deregulation through Reagan Bush, through Father Bush, and through Clinton that had allowed that free-for-all to happen. And he's talking about tax cuts. Yeah, tax cuts benefit mostly who? The mega rich. So the idea that Trump is for the working man and the working woman is a nonsense. But that's what the rhetoric says, while the beneficiaries are the very people in the swamp that he says he was going to drain. Then he hands civilian posts as head of the Pentagon, head of Homeland Security, and his national security advisor to military people. I mean, the very idea of putting a military person in charge of Homeland Security is outrageous. And then you realize that there is another common theme, that these military people like Mad Dog Mattis in the Pentagon, Defense Secretary, and the National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, are fiercely opposing and demonizing Iran. This is what Trump has been doing. Then you look at Israel, which in so many ways owns Trump, and they have started this rhetoric and demonization of Iran. Netanyahu was doing it in London when he met the British Prime Minister this week. And of course, Saudi Arabia, who is a truly fundamental opponent and hater of Iran, is in there as well. And I posted this picture on the website and social media on December the 15th last year, because it was already obvious to me where this whole thing was going. When you put the dots, you put the pieces together. And so since Trump came into office, the mantra has been Iran, 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 Iran. And there's a reason for that. Let's go back to the time just before Boy George Bush came to power. This neocon group that came to power a few months later with Bush were behind an organization called the Project for the New American Century. And they produced a document in September 2000 listing a series of countries that they wanted the United States to regime change in what they called multiple theater wars. And these countries included Iraq, Libya, Syria, Lebanon, and the biggest prize of all, Iran. They also called for regime change in China. That'll be fun. And when they came to power with Bush, this policy was instigated. But of course, how do you justify regime changing in those countries?